Welcome back to Boiler Wild. My name is Eric Johnson. This is a special episode. We are at episode 21, and this is actually going to be the topic. There is a magical number when you get to episode 21 when you are podcasting. So let me drop some facts and statistics on you, and you will now understand on why you are so privileged to be listening to episode 21 of the Boiler Wild podcast. To become a top 1% podcaster, you need to publish at least 21 episodes. Statistics show that 90% of podcasts don't make it past the first episode, and 9% stop before reaching 20. That means to reach episode 21 puts you ahead of the vast majority of podcasters. Only 1% of podcasters reaching episode 21 highlights the fact that consistently publishing is a key differentiator for podcast success. The key word is consistently publishing, consistent. And I will tie that in. Boilern, the company that I founded, the mission of Boilern to drive continuous learning and improvement in the boiler industry. Continuous, that's key word. So we have two C words here. We have consistent and continuous. Continuous, I would say, is a synonym of consistent. They're not exactly the same, but to me, they are. I think about them the same. The mission of Boilern to drive continuous learning. So you always want to be learning, and if you are continuously learning, you are consistently learning. So this is episode 21. So why is it that people come out of the gate and 90% of podcasts don't get past episode 3? It's a super high rate of drop off. So basically, if you publish 4 episodes, you are a top 10% podcaster, and then you have to publish 21 episodes to get to the top 1% of podcast. And that's probably boils down to it's easy to say you're going to do something, but it's harder to follow through, especially when there's no reward. Everybody sees all the big podcasters getting all their sponsorships, having their thousands and thousands of downloads, and that's all rewarding. And they go, I want that. Or they see people online on Instagram and they have 40,000 followers and they get a brand deal or something and whatnot. I don't know. They get some free running shoes from somebody, but they go, I want that. I'm going to start an Instagram account. I can make reels and content about running, and I want those. And it's easy to look at the work that other people are doing and saying, I can do that. But what happens when you post that first Instagram reel and it gets 200 views and 3 likes? Do you show up the next day and post another one? You spend an hour editing it, you post it, it gets 150 views, 3 likes. You post the next one, it gets 300 views, 5 likes. Post the next one, it gets 200 views, 4 likes. Now you're not getting any feedback. You've just posted a couple videos, and it seems like you're stuck in the mud, and it's so easy to give up. Same thing with podcasting. Unless you are super, super famous, you're not going to have any listeners on episode 1, on episode 2, on episode 3, even on episode 10. I don't even have a ton of listeners on episode 21. And that's partly due to me because let me finish my thought first before I get into that. But people want immediate feedback, and telling others that they're going to do something that releases positive dopamine in your brain, and you feel like you've already accomplished that. Yeah, I'm going to start a podcast, and I bought a microphone, and I bought headphones, and I bought an LED sign, and we're going to set up a little podcast studio. I got a table and this and cushions, and they worry about the details, but they don't actually worry about the core fundamentals of podcasting, which is you actually have to publish a podcast. It's so easy to just spend money and, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, spend money. But when you have to actually sit down and talk into a microphone by yourself, that takes a special somebody. And then to do that 21 times, only 1% of podcasters get there. And the reason that happens is if you don't have any feedback, you drop off. You say, "Oh, I'll do a podcast tomorrow." "Oh, I don't have time. I got busy. I'll do a podcast tomorrow." And all of a sudden, a month goes by and you've done one episode. And then you're like, and then it's in the back of your mind, and you're like, "Oh man, I really got to get back to that podcast, but I don't really know a good topic to discuss." And and then you go back and forth, and then a week goes by, and then all of a sudden another month goes by, and you're like, "Man, shoot, I haven't done my second episode of that podcast, and I'm still planning it. Oh, it's been 2 months." And then all of a sudden 3 or 4 months goes by, and now you've moved on to something else. The glamour and your friends or your people you told that you're going to start a podcast, that's all worn away, and now you've published one episode, and 3 months later you haven't done anything else, and you've given up, and you've had no reward. Same thing happens with weight loss. People say, "I'm going to lose weight," and then they clean out their house of all the junk food, and they start trying to eat 1,000 calories a day and eat a ton of healthy food, and they go to one extreme. And if you go to the extreme without having steps and processes, then you normally cannot stay consistent, and then you crash out and probably don't even make it a week before you binge and go eat junk food and say, "Oh, well, I'll start again Monday. It's all right." And all of a sudden, you go years and years and years not losing any weight or achieving your fitness goals because you're constantly starting over and can't stay consistent. Consistency is key. In the boiler room, consistency is key. To show up and invest in yourself consistently over your career is a choice. You can go home, and there's nothing wrong with going home. If you have a family or whatnot, even if you're single, there's nothing wrong with going home and shutting off your brain, shutting off your job, and not thinking about it till you clock in the next day. However, don't be surprised when the person that goes home and reads 30 minutes in a book gets promoted a year or two later because they are more educated and more skilled and solve bigger and better problems than you. Don't be surprised when they do that. They only went home and they only did 30 minutes a day. But in 30 minutes, let's just say that's 10 pages, that ends up being 70 pages a week. And 70 pages a week turns into, times 52 weeks, turns into 3,640 pages a year. And if your books have, say, 200 pages in them, that's around 18 books a year that they've read just by reading 30 minutes a day. 18 books. So the goal of reading 18 books, if you start January 1st and say, "I'm going to read 18 books this year," that is a huge goal. That is lofty. That sounds like a lot. You're like, "How am I going to get there?" But when you break it down into, "I'm just going to read 30 minutes, which ends up to be, say 10 pages a day. I'm going to read 10 pages a day. And I'm going to do that every single day. All of a sudden, by the time you get to the end of the year, December 31st, you're like, man, I read 18 books this year. That's crazy. That's way more books than I ever thought. I only read 10 pages a day. That is the power of consistency. And in life, nothing stays the same except death and taxes. And we need to constantly grow and educate ourselves in our careers and innovate, and especially with boilers. There's always new technology to learn. There's always a new product to learn, new problems to solve. And if you're not consistently trying to grow and learn, I believe you're going backwards. And there's no really staying in the same place. Life is moving, time is moving forward. And if you don't keep up, you go backwards. Same thing with a company. If a company isn't growing, it's probably dying. It may not seem like it's dying, but slowly over time, it's dying. With inflation, technically, your company has to grow 3% every year. Otherwise, it's shrinking. So consistent action. I am a top 1% podcaster because I was consistent enough to produce 21 episodes. Now, I am recording this on a Thursday. Will I show up Friday, tomorrow, and record episode 22? Can I stay consistent past the glory of being a top 1% podcaster? Come back tomorrow and find out. But before, my earlier thought I wanted to get to was, I said I don't have a lot of listeners, and that's mostly because of me, because the only way you would have heard this podcast, other than the 5 people that I told in person, is a banner on my profile on my LinkedIn page has the podcast title and picture and show. And I only have, 85 downloads at this point. And probably it's like 5 to 6 is the most per episode at this point. But that was mostly for me. I wanted to not be the person, to not be the 90% of people who announce that they're going to have a podcast and stop before episode 3. I wanted to prove to myself that I could be consistent when nobody's listening, when nobody's watching. And that's what it takes if you're going to achieve any goal. The work comes before the belief. And I believe I can get good at communication. I believe I can bring value to others through a podcast. But right now, I'm terrible at podcasting. 21 episodes ago, I was even more terrible at podcasting. I am not a talker. I think slow. I talk slow. Everything is against me, except for I do have a face for radio. That is something that goes for me. I've been told I have a face for radio, so that's the positive. But everything else, it goes against me, and none of my strong suits. I'm an introvert. Everything, it says, hey, you should not have a podcast. But you know what? I want to grow my communication skills. I want to try to help others learn about the boiler industry, to help them think about other topics, to help them think about personal development, to share what's going on in my life, what's going on with Boiler, and what's going on in the industry. And the only way to do that is to put myself out there and to grow and do things that are uncomfortable. This podcast, like I've talked about before, is uncomfortable for me. It's not a highlight. I do not enjoy doing it. And it doesn't matter though, because I have made the choice to start this podcast. I have made the choice to record 21 episodes consistently, and making that choice and showing up, even though there's no reward, is how you get anywhere in life. You may, if you are brand new to the boiler industry and you feel overwhelmed and you're like, man, I just want to, like, this sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. People yell at me when I make mistakes. Boiler rooms are hot. It's loud, and you can easily give up because you don't see any reward. You're making $22 an hour. You're like, I can make $3 more an hour down the road working 40 hours a week at this manufacturing facility packing boxes or something. And while that is true, that manufacturing facility packing boxes, you're only ever going to make $25 an hour. That person's making $25 an hour for the last 15 years. And when raises come out, they give you 3 cents. But with the boiler industry, if you want to go be a service technician and you can solve big, scary problems, you can make a decent amount of money. And that can easily be over $100,000 a year. I know everybody says $100,000 a year, but if you are a good service technician in 2025 and you're not making $100,000 a year, you are at the wrong company, or you're not as good as you think you are. But anyways, in order to get to that person who is good, who is a big problem solver, who solves those big scary problems that customers have that other people don't want to solve, you have to consistently learn. You have to be bad at solving problems. You have to tell people, hey, I don't know. Can you teach me? Why did you do that? Help me learn that. Hey, I'm going to go home and I'm going to read a book that I bought. Hey, I'm going to ask my boss, hey, is there anything I can do to help me learn a little bit more? I know we have this track program, but I want to do it faster. And now it's important to say, not go all in and just try to go to the extreme. If there's a structured program that your employer says it takes 6 months, don't say, well, I want to do it in 2 months. No, there's probably a reason why it takes 6 months. And going home and trying to read 20 boiler books is not going to make you learn faster. Consuming information and just saying, I read 20 books in a month, that doesn't help you. You actually have to learn, and learning takes time. There is an aspect to it where you can speed it up, and that's through intentional learning. As long as you are intentional, you can speed up your learning instead of passive learning where you just show up to the job and whatever happens that day happens and you just learn through doing things or not doing things. That can lead to 10 years of experience and you have very, very poor fundamentals of knowledge. But hopefully you have an employer who has a training program, competency program that invests in you and has some structure around you, and you can consistently build yourself up so that in 6 months you hit that mark. Hey, I made it this far. But then 5 years, what happens when you get to 5 years down the road? I know it's so hard to think about 5 years later from not knowing anything, but you get 5 years and then you look back and you go, man, I knew nothing. Look how far I've come. I've doubled my hourly wage. I got married. I have a kid. I've learned all this stuff. Like, so much can happen in 5 years, but you have to be consistent. You have to work towards something. And that goes into the last thing I want to touch on is you got to have goals. Don't go through life just flowing whatever way the river flows and bumping down like most people do. If you don't have goals on your nutrition, you are probably going to get fat. The average American gets less than 2,000 steps a day, which is considered sedentary, and they eat around 3,400 calories. And for most people, that is calorie surplus, and especially if you're sedentary, and you will eventually gain weight. And that is how some crazy high percentage of Americans are overweight and obese. With learning, if you say, hey, I'm going to learn, but not today, Next week, I'll crack open that book. Next week, I'll watch that video. Next week, I'll work late on that overtime job with that senior tech. If everything becomes next week becomes next year becomes 20 years down the line and you never did it. And then you look back and you have regrets. Go all in, but have some goals. Have some short-term goals, some long-term goals, and have goals throughout your professional career and your personal life. Hey, I'm going to run a half marathon. All right, so how do you train for a half marathon? You don't just go out and say, hey, I'm going to run 13 miles when the last year you've sat on the couch. You go out and run a quarter mile, and then you may walk a mile. If you look at a half marathon training program, they don't say, hey, run 4 miles every day. You are going to fail if you do that. You have to slowly get into it, and you have to be consistent. And before you know it, you'll be ready for a half marathon, and you'll feel great during the race. But if you start skipping workouts, if you say, oh, I'll run tomorrow, I was tired today. Oh, I'll run tomorrow. All of a sudden, you've missed 2 weeks of workouts, and you've missed that half-mile sprint and run and the 1 mile walk. You're like, oh, it's only a half-mile run and a 1 mile walk. Like, how much is that? How much is that? All those little steps, they add up to the big goal of running a half marathon. All the little 10 pages a day of the reading goal adds up to 18 books a year. Like, it's all that consistent work that you cannot see and seems like it doesn't matter. Oh, like, I'm just going to eat a large fry. Like, that's not going to put off my diet. One large fry won't, but consistently putting off your diet and eating one large fry every week will ruin your diet. So pay attention to the small details. Stay consistent. You can achieve more than you ever realize by just staying consistent. Get off social media. Don't doom scroll. I catch myself scrolling through Instagram, and it's so easy to get lost. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, you look up and you're like, man, what am I doing with my life? If you really want to be scared, go on your phone, look at the phone usage on your hours, and you'll be like, man, I spent 40 hours on my phone last week. As much time as I clocked in at my job, I spent on my phone. People do that, and that's probably a low number for a week of phone usage. So think about what you could do with 40 hours instead of staring at your phone, scrolling through Instagram Reels or TikTok. But I will advocate, if you're going to be scrolling through anything, scroll through LinkedIn, be intentional about it, make a profile, put your picture on the profile that's actually relevant and recent. Fill out your profile, your employer, some information, and start engaging with like-minded people. If you're in the boiler industry, engage with people in the boiler industry, send connection requests, and start building your network. You never know what will happen when you build a network. Nobody ever said, man, I have too many network connections. I wish I knew less people. That's not a thing. Everybody says, man, I wish I knew somebody that could help me solve this problem. Man, I wish I had somebody to call that had gone through this problem before. You can meet those people on LinkedIn. I've had amazing conversations with people on LinkedIn, all because I try to post every single day. I won't say I'm consistent. I am trying to be more consistent, and I try to post every day. I won't say I do post every day. That would be a lie. There have been weeks, there have even been a month in the last two years where I didn't post. I got busy. Oh, I'll post tomorrow. All of a sudden a week goes by. All of a sudden 2 weeks goes by. All of a sudden before I know it, a whole month goes by and I didn't post. I'm like, man, it's been a whole month since I posted on LinkedIn. That's crazy. But I try to show up on LinkedIn every day, try to post something, some picture and a good caption or something. But it's not about bragging or showing my life or whatever on LinkedIn. The biggest value is showing up, starting those conversations with people. I've met so many amazing people off of LinkedIn virtually, had conversations, DM them, they've called me, and we just talk like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, I learned about other people in the boiler industry and water treatment and other related industries that have seen my LinkedIn posts, and we've connected and we've talked, and they probably will never buy from me, but I am interested in what they do, and it makes me better as a person because I'm now learning perspective from other people and what they do and growing my worldview. And that is not something that will happen if you just sit in your house or go to your same job and only meet 20 people, the same 20 people, and never meet other strangers. But you do life how you want to, but don't underestimate the power of consistent action. We are at episode 21. Hip hip hooray. Boiler Wild. Hopefully we will have another 1,000 episodes, but I am ready to go. I am dedicated to the mission. We are going to drive continuous learning and improvement in the boiler industry. And one of the ways I am doing that is through this podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, thank you for listening to Boiler Wild. I appreciate you, and stay wild.